Hello and welcome to section 2. In this section, I'm going to talk about what is new in TensorFlow 2.0, the alpha version of which is released just recently. So let's get started. So the first thing that is introduced in TensorFlow 2.0 is eager execution. Remember, in TensorFlow 1.0, we had to create or write the code in two parts. First was the creation of the computational graph and then execution of this computational graph in a session. Now we don't have to do that anymore in the eager execution. In 1.0 it was a lazy execution. In 2.0 it is eager execution, which means that you could write the code like a normal Python programming. So there are no more sessions, and the other thing is you don't have to initialize the variables anymore. We will see that in greater detail in some of the demos in the future video. The second change is an introduction of Tdot Function, which is also known as a decorator, for executing in a distributed mode. The purpose of having a computational graph and executing this in a session was to make the code scalable so that it can be executed in a distributed mode. So now that sessions are not there, does that mean this code is not scalable? Not really. So if you want to write your code in a distributed manner, you can prefix it with Tdot Function, and thereby it can be executed in a distributed mode. We will see this also in a demo in the next video. The third part is consolidation of the high-level APIs. Keras is the high-level API now in TensorFlow 2.0. And a lot of high-level functions have been consolidated under a version of Keras API called tf.keras. So we will see this also in some of the demos. And then TensorFlow team has provided an upgrade to minimize the effort for converting any 1.0 code into 2.0. Remember, the TensorFlow 1.0 code, if you try to execute it directly with 2.0, it may not work because there are quite a few changes. And it is a cumbersome task to make all these changes manually. Therefore, this team has provided an upgrade tool which is like a script which will help in making some of these changes automatically. So this automates the process to some extent so that our effort to upgrade is reduced. I will show you a demo of this as well. Let me briefly tell you what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of the newer version. The TensorFlow 2.0 is actually good news for folks who are completely new to TensorFlow because it is very easy to learn. Remember, in TensorFlow 1.0, the whole concept of creating the computational graph and then executing this graph in a session was pretty difficult for people who were new to it. So there was a huge learning curve. With 2.0, that's no longer the case, and people can write code just like any regular Python program. That's the biggest advantage of this new version. The other advantage, of course, is that since the API has been consolidated, a lot of the code that was written in 1.0 using higher level APIs, like for example Keras, may still work without any changes. In some cases, of course, they have to be modified, but a large part of the code written using APIs like Keras will continue to work. What are some of the disadvantages? One major disadvantage is people who have learned and are used to TensorFlow 1.0 will have to unlearn and relearn because the whole model has changed. The other disadvantage is that there's a lot of old code in the sense written with TensorFlow 1.0, and this will not work seamlessly with 2.0. So either that has to be executed in 1.0, continue to be executed in 1.0, or all of that needs to be rewritten for 2.0. Of course, the TensorFlow team has provided an upgrade tool, but still it is a lot of effort to rewrite this code and test it. So that's another disadvantage of 2.0, but I feel this is a temporary disadvantage, and by and large, the new version is much more helpful and much better. In the long run, this is a good move. So this is one of the major changes, and I'm going to demonstrate this to you in our famous Hello World program.